Joining us today, we've got the Mayor of Southlake, John Huffman, who a good friend of mine and I have known for years. Now, before you were mayor, you were also on city council.
It's true.
So how long have you been on city council, and then what made you decide to run for mayor?
Oh, that's a great question. In today's political environment, you always kind of have to be a little crazy to run for office, as you well know.
You do.
Well, thank you for having me on. It's really fun to be here, and it's exciting to see you in this role because I, obviously from a distance followed your career through your Irving City Council and mayor, and you did such a great job. And to be representing now Southlake in Congress is a really pleasure for us. So, no, I mean, I've always loved public service, the idea of public service, and I was asked years ago to run for city council. I was involved in some boards and commissions, and I was asked by then mayoral candidate Laura Hill, who you know very well, to run for her spot in city council. I hadn't really considered it before. I think I was 30 or 31, so didn't know what I didn't know even. But I did, and I've loved it. I mean, coming from city government, there's so much that the local government does for citizens, right? So much of what we experience in American life is kind of managed and regulated by the local governments. Mm-hmm. Which means that as local government officials, we're able to be very responsive to needs. If somebody has an issue with a development regulation, we're able to dig into that in a very real way and make changes. So that's been super fun.
It's a trick question as such, because you have no idea what's going to be 5-10 years out.
No.
But you've been mayor now for how long?
6 months. 6 months feels like 6 years.
You just started your term as mayor.
Yep.
When you are done, what are the projects that you're going to be able to look at and say, we were able to push this through? How do you see Southlake looking differently, the same in 5 to 10 years if you get those projects done that you're really focused on?
That's a really, really good question. One project that's on the books, has been on the books for a while, is called Carillon. So at the corner of 114 and White's Chapel, there's a hard corner. It's a commercial corner that's on a big residential, or next to a big residential site. And originally it was proposed in 2007, 2008 as this European walkable type community with all kinds of cool retail and restaurants and parks. When 08 happened, that whole project was put on ice. The residential was built, but the commercial was dead. It was revived maybe 10 years later, actually with the former Southlake mayor, John Terrell, and he's been working on it ever since. And it's in the middle of the process right now. So we'll see how the vote goes. It passed first reading, and if it passes second reading, it's going to be an exciting project, I think, for Southlake. And you know what, outside of the land development piece, Southlake in the last 18 months has been in the news a lot. And it's been really unfortunate because a lot of the media attention is focused on things that people in Southlake don't recognize. Listen, we're not any stranger to media attention or to controversy. But we've been painted, I think, in a very unfair light. The reality is Southlake is an amazing, welcoming place full of good and generous people. I'll never forget just throughout COVID, the amazing amount of outpouring for residents who are sick, but also for businesses that were struggling. The community really rallied around its own, and it always has. During the freeze of February, you remember how terrible that was. It was really fun to see, though. Again, the community rallying around people in need. It doesn't matter your race or your ethnicity, your background or your gender. It's a great community full of very, very supportive and community-focused people. So that's one of the things we're going to be very, very focused on, is telling those stories, telling the story of what Southlake is, because what MSNBC wants to say about us just really doesn't reflect reality. So we're going to keep being out front and telling those stories and making sure that the people of Southlake feel really, really good about the attention they're getting. So
it's amazing when you've got outside influencers that come in and try to redefine your community, and you don't recognize what they're saying about it. You live there. You know the people.
You're familiar with this too.
I'm very familiar with this. I remember living through this when I was in Irving, and when I was mayor of Irving, and having those outside media influences that are just trying to create a story.
Yeah.
They want that buzz.
That's
and they're
right.
going to use you as the example.
That's right.
And showing beautiful homes and great residents is somehow something that we're supposed to be ashamed of.
Yeah, right.
And that's what people want to live. They want to live in safe neighborhoods.
That's right.
They want to live where a community gets along. They want to have options for retail, great schools, safe streets.
Yeah.
And those are not things that we should be embarrassed about. You should be screaming from the rooftops.
Right.
little bit about Southlake, how
Yeah.
things that you see that are just really doing well, and see things that need some more attention, need some more resources.
Yeah, great question. So Southlake's a wonderful place. You've spent a lot of time in our city. I feel really blessed to be leading a community full of leaders, full of wonderful families who truly love where they live. Everybody moves to Southlake intentionally, and they do it because they saw something special. Whether it's an award-winning school district in Carroll ISD, amazing parks, amazing reputation for police and fire, DPS. Really great mayor and council, which I'm sure is high on everybody's list. But it's a special place full of special people, and to be able to tell those stories, right, as mayor, is a lot of fun. So not only do I get to kind of make everyone's life better however I can, I also get to be their advocate. I get to work for them and work to make sure that the reputation of their community that they've invested in is strong. Being able to tell the story and being able to talk to people like you about what a wonderful city we live in is a blessing for sure.
Well, what is one of the secrets about Southlake? You've lived in Southlake for how long now?
Since 2008, so 13 years, yeah.
So what is a secret that people who live there for a long time might know, but people on the outside, even in the Metroplex, may not know about Southlake?
That's a great question. I think one of the cool things about Southlake, I guess just maybe from a development standpoint, because obviously local government, we deal with land development issues a lot, it's still got this kind of upscale, semi-rural feel. Obviously, the Southlake Town Square, it kind of put the city on the map, right? And it was at the time it was just a cutting edge kind of concept for a development. Still is in a lot of ways.
Well, you did what a lot of developers said can't be done.
Yeah.
Because when I was a mayor and I was comparing Irving to Southlake, I'm like, they have all that retail. They didn't have a bunch of apartments all around.
Yeah.
How were you able to do that?
Yeah, I mean, the hats off to Brian Stebbins and Cooper and Stebbins and the folks that had that vision, and the local leaders like Mayor Rick Stacy, who was mayor at the time, who had the guts to pursue that vision. Because I mean, listen, hindsight's 2020, right? In retrospect, it seemed inevitable, but at the time it wasn't. Mm-hmm. Right? It very, very well could have gone in a bad way. But they had the vision, they had the guts to make it happen, and we're all benefiting from it. But because that development was so successful, the commercial environment's super strong, and we were able to do that without high density, to your point.
What's the most challenging aspect of being an elected official that you've seen? I'm not going to say being mayor, because that may have changed in the last 6 months, but I guess there's a difference between being mayor and being on city council.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
What do you think is the most challenging aspect of your job?
That's a great question, and I think my answer 6 years ago would have been different. Now politics, as you well know, is so just superheated, charged with emotion. I think what we live out on the local level, and you on the congressional level as well, is sort of a microcosm of what's happening nationally. And what breaks my heart is when politics becomes the definer of relationships. Unfortunately, just being where I am and doing what I do, I've lost friends over politics, not because of any stance I've taken, but sometimes it's because of people I support or people who support me, or just the fact that everybody kind of feels real tribal right now, right? You're either on my side or you're on the other side. And so part of I'm a middle child, I'm a peacemaker by nature, so I like to bring people together and celebrate what makes everyone unique and special. So we work really hard on things like, we did our first Hispanic Heritage Month in Southlake called Somos Southlake, which is super fun. There were 4,000 people in Town Square, celebrating Hispanic heritage from across the world. We do a giant Diwali Fest every year, which is great. We did Christmas time in Southlake, our home for a holiday celebration. So events like that where we get to celebrate what makes our community special and unique, that's what I'm about. I want to bring people together and make sure people understand that what ties us together is still stronger than what's going to divide us. That's I think the most challenging thing. It's just navigating these political waters and making sure people understand that what unifies us is still important to focus on.
So that's what's most challenging. What do you think is the best part?
I honestly, what gets me out of bed and going in the mayor role is making a difference. It sounds cheesy, but it's true. It's really making a difference in a real way, right? If there is a problem, you can fix it. If someone has an issue with something going on with city staff, you can intercede. Or if somebody says, hey, have you ever thought about running things this way? Or have you ever thought about doing this? This is how an ordinance is affecting my business. Have you thought about? You can make a change and make a change that's very impactful. And to see the look on people's faces when you take that step, when you fix what they're bringing up and it impacts them in a positive way, it's really, really special. So problem solving, I think is a strength, and I like to be able to be in a position to solve problems. So.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great answer. People don't really understand sometimes why we do these jobs. And being able to be effective at creating change or affecting people's lives.
Yeah.
I think it's important.
Yeah, well, and as you well know, there's a lot of things you could be doing with your time and me as well, and that are far less stressful and probably far more remunerative. But you get into this because you want to solve problems. You get into this because you want to make people's lives better. And as long as we have public officials who are focused on that, life is going to be okay.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you sharing that with us, and I look forward to working with you for years more.
Thanks, Congresswoman. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for your service to this district.
You guys take care.